Yeah. Yep. We got, there's two more. Well, good morning. I have about a minute early, but everybody's quiet. So we'll go ahead and start. We actually have a lot to cover this morning, so getting started early isn't really a problem. For those of you who are watching at home, just as a reminder, we're going to have this class for about 40 minutes or so, and then the stream will actually go down, and there'll be a break in the stream as we relocate the equipment from up here in the auditorium down to the parking lot behind the building. And so, give us 10 minutes or so, and then the stream will be back up, and you can join us for our worship assembly. And hopefully, any of you who are listening online, 20 minutes maybe give you enough time to get up here to the building if you want to worship with us in person. Okay, today we're going to begin lesson 3 in our workbook of Searching for the King. And we're going to be talking about the Philistines today. Going to be introducing them. Before we begin, let's say a word of prayer. Our Father in heaven, this beautiful day that you've given to us and all the many blessings of it, we're eternally thankful for all those. Father, we're thankful that it's the Lord's Day. And we have the privilege of coming together with brothers and sisters in Christ, studying from your word and remembering the wonderful sacrifice of your Son for all of us. Be with us, Father, as we go through this Bible study and through our worship period, that we may take the things that we learn, look to your scriptures and apply them to our lives. In Christ's name, amen. Okay, as I said, we're going to be talking about the Philistines this morning and Israel's interaction with with those peoples. We're going to be studying mostly from chapters 4, 5, and 6. We'll eke into chapter 7 just a little bit, but we're going to be trying to look at those chapters in particular. The picture that you see on this title page for these series of slides, this is the Arabic village of Abu Ghosh, and it sits about 8 to 10 miles west of Jerusalem, still up in the hills. But this village sits on top of the biblical town of Kiryat Jearim, which is where we're going to end our story today. And so you can kind of picture that in your mind. This is where the ark will actually end up at the end of this story. But this is that location. But let's open up to 1 Samuel, the 4th chapter. I just want to kind of go through this. There's a lot of this that I would love to read, but we simply just don't have the time. There'll be portions of it that we will. But I kind of want to go through this story. For the most part, we know this story. I'm sorry, the TV blipped on me there. I was trying to make sure the slides were still up. Most of us know this story, but there's a lot of interesting aspects that hopefully we can bring out today. So, this chapter starts out with verse 1 saying, "The word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out to battle against the Philistines. They encamped at Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped at Aphek." Now, what's interesting to me, there's two things interesting about this verse. First of all, is that, remember, the chapter modifications to this text were put in later. And so, if you look back to the last verse of chapter 3, what we're talking about here is how Samuel has now become God's spokesman to the people. God is now talking with Samuel. He's no longer talking with Eli as he normally did. He's talking with Samuel. And by the time you get to chapter 4, now all of Israel. We talked about that. In chapter 3, he talked about he was known from Dan to Beersheba. But, Samuel's being heard by all the people of all of Israel now. Then the second thing is that life isn't peaceful. There are people there that they're in battle against. Now, why are those people there? Why are the Philistines where they are? That's right, because the Israelites didn't take care of them the first time they were told to. So you've got people in the land, and not only the Philistines, but other people in the land continually cause problems for the Israelites. We'll see this throughout the time of the United Kingdom and throughout the time of the divided kingdom as well. And of course, that's what eventually kind of led to their downfall, was the fact that they didn't do what God said when they first entered into the land. So they've come to this battle. Now, these two cities are interesting. They're kind of arbitrary cities, but in reality, they are not. And if you look at a map of the area, you see that Shiloh is located approximately right there. Now, not all of the army came from Shiloh. Not all the Israelite army came from Shiloh, but Shiloh was kind of their, I'll just say, headquarters. That's where the ark was, and so directives would have come out of Shiloh. And of course, the Philistines lived down here in the coastal plain, and you can actually see on this map, one of the reasons why I love this map is you can actually see the geographical features here. You can see the coastal plain area from here over. You can see where it's flat, and then you can see where it's more mountainous over here. And for the most part, when the Israelites captured the land of Israel, when they came in with Joshua, they captured the hill country. There's a lot of the flat areas, especially in the coastal plain, that they did not capture. And that's why you have the Philistines and other peoples living down in there. And so they come together to battle. Well, these two cities, Aphek and Ebenezer, are located very close to one another. Ebenezer is like the last city that you come to in the hill country. So that's where the Israelites were. Aphek was actually in the coastal plain. But they're very, very close together, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But this is where this battle took place. So, what happened the first time they came together? They have a battle, and what happens? Yeah, it didn't go well. It didn't go well. How many people did the Israelites lose? 4,000. 4,000 that we lost. I say we as if I was there. 4,000. Yeah, 4,000 they lost. And so what did they, when they were licking their wounds, and who did the elders say caused this? I mean, who had defeated them that day? Yeah, God had defeated them that day. Were they correct about that? Yeah, I think they were. God certainly hadn't helped them. The Israelites should have known that if God's on their side, can they be defeated? No. They were told that countless times as they were coming into the land. If God's on their side, then they can't be defeated. And of course, they were defeated here. So they come up with a plan. And what's their plan? New idea here. Bring the ark. Why would they think that's a good plan? It's the presence of God. It's the mercy seat of God. So theoretically, wherever the Ark of the Covenant is, that's where God is going to be. The problem here is, did God tell them to take the Ark into battle? We don't have any record of that, and so this is probably something that he wasn't in favor of. So, but they're going to go with this plan. They're going to take their good luck charm into battle with them. Now, how does that go? Yeah, okay, we'll get to that in just a minute. I forgot about this question. How's the ark described in Scripture? Verse 4. It's described the same way we just said. It says, the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord of hosts, who is enthroned on the cherubim. This was where God resided. And I think phrases like this are interesting because when was this book written? We don't know the exact year, but was this narrative written as the events were happening? Or was it written a little bit later looking back? It was probably written a little bit later looking back. Someone has documented what happened here. And so how is this person, knowing the end of the story, how is this person describing the Ark of the Covenant? Isn't he reminding them? He's reminding the readers what this is. Because this is something that I think maybe the Israelites temporarily forgot. They want to take this into battle, but this is not what this is for. This is the mercy seat of God, and it's interesting how that the writer brings this up as he's describing it.
He describes the Lord of hosts, which is the army of the Lord, basically.
Yeah.
All that the Lord controls. That's his army.
Yeah, all right, absolutely right. Great point. Okay, let's get to what Doug was talking about. What happened? So they brought the ark from Shiloh to Ebenezer. They brought it in the camp, and what happened in the camp of the Israelites? Earth shook. They were excited. They shouted because this will solve our problems. This will solve our problems, the fact that we have the ark here. And so what was the reaction in the Philistine camp? They were scared. Why were they scared? It says something here. It says they heard they heard all the the cheering and everything that was taking place over there. Well, to me that's an interesting phrase as well. What does that tell you about the proximity of these two camps? Oh, they were really close. I mean, they couldn't have been more than a mile or so apart. I mean, they are really, really close. And so to be able to hear that from the Israelite camp. So yeah, that's the way the Philistines say some interesting things in here. What do they say?
Said, woe to us, for there hath not been such a thing, been done such a thing heretofore. And this had happened.
Yeah, this hadn't happened before. Reference an event. What is that? Yeah, the plagues in Egypt. Okay, let's think about this for a second. When did the plagues in Egypt happen?
400 years ago plus.
Yeah, this was 400 years ago. 400 years ago. We read in Exodus about these plagues, and I read the Bible just like you do. You kind of encapsulate these little stories and little narratives. Okay, well, these plagues were terrible, but this happened in Egypt. The Pharaoh knew about it. The people of Egypt, they knew about it, but this all happened in Egypt. By the time Israelites move away, they leave the land of Egypt. That's long history. No. Here's a group of people, the Philistines, 400 years later, and they're talking about this. They know what the God of Israel is capable of. And so it's just interesting that they bring up that even in their own internal talkings about what's happening here. Okay, well let's move on. So what happened in the battle the next day, or whenever? I guess it was the next day. What happened to the battle then? It did not go good again. In fact, it went bad, even worse. How many men died this time? 30,000. 30,000, and it mentions specifically two people that died. Who's that? Yeah, Eli's sons. They were sent, no doubt, when they brought the ark out of Shiloh, they were probably sent to keep an eye on the ark because of their role as priest. And, of course, in the battle, they died as well. So this was not a good thing. And not only did so many people die, what else happened? Yeah, the ark has been captured. Probably the last thing on their mind when they removed the ark from the building in Shiloh was that 24, 48, 72 hours later, they would no longer be in possession of it. Now, how long had they been in possession of it? Yeah, this gets to the same question. Yeah, 350 to 400 years, long time. This was a big deal. And this would have been an emotional problem for them that the ark is not here. Doug?
I like your point. They used it as a lucky charm.
Yeah.
Or something that would protect them.
Yeah.
Instead of turning to God, here's this. Some people choose, well, I went to church and I prayed in the same manner that they did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Expecting God to just,
Magically do what they want him to do. Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, so now let's move on to the next little section here. We have any comments or questions before we move on? Yeah, Craig.
I think it's interesting too, when the Philistines are referring to God, and then when they capture the ark, they refer to these are the gods who struck the Egyptians from the sort of place in the wilderness. It's really clear they don't know what the ark is.
Yeah.
That the place didn't occur in the wilderness. They had a misunderstanding
Yeah.
of what it was, but they used the phrase, the word Elohim they use for God, so it's the same word that we use
Yeah.
for God.
Mhm.
God's Elohim. But when they capture the ark, they think they're taking God.
Yeah.
What they're used to, the statue, the luxury.
Yeah, right.
They can take that God.
Yeah, no, that's right.
I would
Yeah, this was it. And we're going to get to when those two quote unquote idols face off here in a minute, when we see what happens. So this has happened at this battle place. How's the information get back to Shiloh? Yeah, a guy runs the whole way. Do we know that distance? This is just kind of it's a little bit longer. It depends on the route he takes, because I've read where people say that, the first marathon was ran in Greece or somewhere. Well, this distance is about 26 miles, the route he had to take. And so I've heard a lot of people say, well, this was the first marathon. Whatever, I don't want to argue about that. But the guy ran a long way. How long did it take him? It says in here. Yeah, he was able to do this the same day. And so, and of course, if you know a little bit about the geography, this battle would have taken place right on the edge of the coastal plain. You saw it on the map. But this would have been a hilly run by the time and it was been uphill the whole way. This would have been a tough run. So he gets to Shiloh and he begins to tell people, and what happens in the city? As he begins to tell people, what's their reaction? Excuse me? Yeah. This is just devastating. Absolutely devastating. And of course, Eli, who hears this, why did he hear it? Mentions this a couple. I didn't ask that question right. He was, but he can't see, and so his only perception is he hears this, and so he flags the guy down. And what does the guy tell him? Tells him basically two things. I should say three things. The battle was gone, the ark's been captured, and your sons have died. Now, Eli's reaction here is interesting. What happens to Eli? Yeah, he falls over, hits his head. He's an old man. He's overweight. Falls off the chair. I think it says it breaks his neck. And he dies. Okay, but he does so after hearing what? The ark was stolen. Did he have this? Was this a reaction of his sons dying? No. Now, had he been told earlier that his sons were going to die the same day? Yeah, we talked about that on Wednesday night. Yeah, he knew that was going to happen at some point. Did he know that the ark was going to be stolen? Going to be taken? No. That would have been devastating news. News that he was not prepared for. And again, what's his role in Shiloh? He's the priest. This is his responsibility. And now the ark, after being in possession of the Israelites for 350, 400 years, is now gone. And that news is so devastating that, he falls off his chair and dies.
Verse 13 indicates he wasn't looking for his sons.
Yeah.
His fear was for the ark.
Yeah.
Even before he heard the news, his fear was for the ark.
Yeah. It kind of makes you wonder if he questioned the plan. Is this really a good idea to take the ark out into battle? And so, he was really concerned about that. But again, he knew that at some point his sons were going to die, and they were going to die on the same day. So as devastating as that would be, he may have already been kind of mentally prepared for it. But the loss of the ark was just something he just wasn't ready for.
I was wondering how the people got hold of the ark. I mean, obviously, Eli didn't know about it, being a priest. Samuel clearly wouldn't have let that happen.
Yeah.
Without some type of protest, but there's no mention exactly how the people were able to
Go in there and get it.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. A lot of times in Bible stories, I love the information that we're given, but it'd be nice to have just a nickel's worth more of information on things like that. Okay, then there's this other little story here about the wife of Phinehas, one of the sons of Eli. What happens to her? Yeah, the stress of the day, the loss of the ark, the loss of her husband, the loss of her brother-in-law, the father-in-law, all that, the loss of the battle causes her to go into labor, and she has a child, the son of Phinehas, that day. Okay, so the Philistines have captured the ark, and they take the ark to where? what city? Ashdod. Ashdod is one of the 5 cities of the Philistine Pentapolis. In fact, in your workbook, there's a map there with all 5 of those listed. Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ashdod kind of sit out in the coastal plain, a little closer to the Mediterranean Sea. Gath and Ekron sit on the inside of the coastal plain. But those were the 5 cities of the Philistine Pentapolis. So they sent the ark to Ashdod. Why Ashdod? What else was in Ashdod that we learn about? Yeah, the house of Dagon. Now, who is Dagon? Yeah, that's their god. So they've now brought, as Craig said, the physical god of the Israelites into the house of Dagon. And so what happens the first night? That those 2 things are in the same room together. Yeah, Dagon falls over, and how does he fall over? On his face, in front of the ark. How ironic can he get? So Dagon, the idol, falls over. So they come in there the next morning and they find it, and what do? Set him back up. Go out through the day. They go to bed that night, and then what happens the next night? Yeah, this time Dagon has fallen over, facing the ark, and his head and his arms are broken off. Right in front of the ark. And so, I think it's interesting here. What it says. It says, only the trunk of Dagon was left in him. This is 5 verse 4. And then verse 5 says, this is why the priests of Dagon and all who enter the house of Dagon do not tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod to this day. Apparently this event was so devastating to the people, at least the Philistines who live in Ashdod, that they don't even go in there anymore because of this. So, but this wasn't all that happened. What else happened in Ashdod? Yeah, people are struck with tumors. In verse 9, it specifically mentions the men, so it may have been just the men, but they're struck with tumors, and what else happens? Well, we'll mention it here in a minute. I thought it happened here in Ashdod as well. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the people say, well, first of all, who they say was responsible for this? They get all these tumors, and what does it say? Okay, that's right. So in verse 7 it says, the ark of the God of Israel. It seems to me like they're having a little different perception of what this thing is. This isn't God. This is the ark of God. And so, so they sent it over to, the next thing they do is they send it over to Gath. That's what they decided. They decided to send it to Gath. So what happens in Gath? Same thing. Same thing happens. And so then what did they do with it? Yeah, so now they're going to send it to Ekron. So the people of Ekron, they react differently when the thing shows up. How did they react? Yeah, that's right. The people of Ekron were not stupid. They have seen what happened in Ashdod, and they've seen what happened in Gath, and they don't want any part of this thing. Go ahead, Doug. Yeah, that's right. There was no email. Word spread quickly what was happening. And so, yeah, the people of Ekron say in verse 10, they have brought around to us the ark of God of Israel to kill us and our people. They sent therefore and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines and said, surely take away the ark of the God of Israel and let it return to its own place, that it may not kill us and our people. So there's an interesting thing here. The way they say this, it says, send away the ark of the God of Israel and let it return to where? its own place. So what are they saying? Yeah, it doesn't belong here. It doesn't belong here. It needs to go back to where it's supposed to be. And they've come to that conclusion after all this that's going on. And so the people there were struck with tumors. And so they come up with this plan as we begin chapter 6. First of all, how long was it in Philistine territory? So 7 months. So it's now 7 months has passed since the battle, and they've come up with this plan. And so what did the Philistine people call the ark? As we look down in verse 6. In verse 2, it says, the Philistines called the priests and diviners and said, what shall we do with the ark of the Lord? So now how are the Philistine people referring to this? Well, let's contrast that with the next verse. What did the priests call this? Okay, the priests are still calling it the ark of the God of Israel. What are the Philistine people calling this? The ark of the Lord. They recognize that the God of Israel is more than just their God. This is perhaps the events in Dagon's temple showed them something. Perhaps what they're seeing in Ashdod and Gath and Ekron is showing them something. But it seems like the people have come to a little bit different perspective of what this thing is. This is not the ark of the God of Israel. This is the ark of the Lord. And so it's different. It's interesting to see the difference in language there. So they come up with this plan. So what's their plan? That's right. We need to get this thing back. They've already mentioned that, and we need to send an offering with it. Why do they need to send an offering with it? Yeah, this is, and they refer to it a little bit later. We'll have a question about it, but this is a guilt offering. Why would you put a guilt offering in anything? What would be the purpose of a guilt offering? Go back to last quarter, what we talked about. Yeah, you have done something that you should not have done, and you're trying to make recompense for it. And so that's what they're trying to do here. So when they're talking about this plan, they reference an event. What is it? Back to the plagues again. Again, they're talking about the plagues that happen. Do we want that to happen here? It's amazing to me that those events are so ingrained in their mind about this. So they're going to send this thing up, and they come up with a plan. What's the plan here? How are they going to deliver it back?
Craft, I guess, images of the plague, the tumors and rats.
Yeah.
Representing the 5 horns of the
Mhm.
Philistines.
Well, it's, I guess, all they can come up with. But yeah, they're gonna build these golden tumors to represent the plagues that they went through physically, and the golden rats. Apparently there was mice and rats here in their cities as well. They're going to put those with the ark and put it on a cart that's yoked by 2 milk cows. And so if we keep reading here, we're given a lot of information about these cows, which is a little ironic. So verse 10 says, the men did so and took 2 milk cows and yoked them to the cart and shut up their calves at home. Why are we given so much information about these cows? Okay, I've never raised cattle for a living, so I'm talking about things that I don't know about. I'll tell you right now.
When it gets separated, you take the calf from the mother, my grandparents all raised
Yeah.
cows. That mother cow will bellow for 3 or 4 days looking for that calf.
Okay, and that's the point. That's why we're told so much about it. These were 2 milk cows that had probably never actually been yoked, my guess is. They'd been yoked, and they're definitely being put into a situation that they would not be comfortable with. They have taken their calves and locked them up, and they're telling the cows, walk this way, walk in the opposite way. That would have gone against their nature to do that. And so they want them to walk this way, and what's the test here? What are the Philistines saying? Yeah. Who's in control here? If they walk toward the Israelites, then we're doing the right thing by sending this thing back. And so, what happened when they let the cows go? Yeah, it says, verse 12, or 6:12 says, the cows went straight in the direction of Beth-Shemesh along one highway, lowering as they went. What does that mean, lowering as they went? They were determined to get there. That's exactly what they were doing. They were going against what was natural for them to leave their calves, and these cows were going in one direction. They had one goal in mind, to get to Beth-Shemesh. So here comes the cow walking down the valley. I'll show you that in just a minute. And so what did the people of Beth-Shemesh do when they saw the ark? Rejoice. The ark of the Lord is finally back in their possession. It had been gone for 7 months, and here it comes. So I want to show this to you a little bit on the map. Here's a little closer up view. And so what you have is the ark being taken from the battlefield down to Ashdod. That's where Ashdod is located. And then it's taken over to Ekron on the other side of the coastal plain, and then I'm going to Gath first, then up to Ekron. And so the city of Beth-Shemesh sits in the Sorek Valley in the Shephelah. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about geography of this area on Wednesday night. That's kind of our topic for Wednesday night. And so what the people of Ekron decided to do is put this ark on a cart and send it up the Sorek Valley. Here's kind of a close-up. Here's where Gath is. Here's where Ekron is. And you can see the Green Valley, Sorek Valley, coming through here. By the way, who else was from the Sorek Valley? Who grew up in the Sorek Valley? That's right, Samson. Very good. Anyway, so they put the cart up, and it goes down the Sorek Valley, and then the people who live in Beth-Shemesh see it. And then they go down there to it. Here's a couple pictures of the Sorek Valley. This is looking west. I'm standing at Beth-Shemesh. I'm looking west. And Shephelah, this area means lowlands. It's translated in our Bible as lowlands. Again, we'll talk about this on Wednesday night. But you can kind of see the valley coming this way, and then it kind of turns to the right and goes off from there. In fact, you can kind of see a couple of white buildings. Those are cities, modern cities, out in the coastal plain area right there. And so the milk cows would have come down this valley, and then to turn and come up right here, and they would have gotten to this location right here. You're almost looking kind of directly northwest here, looking across the Sorek Valley. And so the milk cows probably would have come to this area right here, right somewhere right down in here. In fact, it tells us exactly whose land it was, doesn't it? It says, the cart came to the field, verse 14, the field of Joshua of Beth-Shemesh. So he had a field, probably somewhere down in here. This is probably his field. And the people go down there and find it. And so this is the area where this would have taken place. So that when they get down there, what happens? We've already talked about the guilt offering. So what happened to some of the men of Beth-Shemesh? Okay, they tore apart the cart. They used that as the wood for a sacrifice. They killed the cows, used that as a sacrifice to God. And then a few of the men did something. What was that? Yeah, they looked into the ark, and what happened to them? Yeah, God killed them. And so what did they decide to do? Well, I have a question here. What's the difference in the Philistines' reaction to the ark and the Israelites' reaction to the ark? By the time the Philistines sent the ark, how did they feel about the ark? terrified, reverence. What about the people of Beth Shemesh? Well, they knew the law. They knew that they should not look into that thing, but some of them still did. There was a difference here in the Philistines' reaction to the ark and the Israelites. So, what did the folks in Beth Shemesh do? Yeah, they said, well, you know, I don't think we want this here either. We need to send it somewhere else.
Lost 50,000 men.
Yeah, they lost a lot of people. They did. They lost a lot of people. Yeah. And so they decided, based on all that, they said, this needs to be somewhere else. And so, again, little nuances here in the text. It says, verse 21 says, so they sent messengers to the inhabitants of Kiriath Jearim, saying, the Philistines have returned the ark of the Lord. Come down and take it up to you. Those are geographical references. The city of Kiriath Jearim sits 2,500 feet in elevation. The city of Beth Shemesh is 600-700 feet. And so these people were literally coming down out of Kiriath Jearim, out of the hill country, down to the city to pick it up and then take it back up there. And so what happened was, they came, here's the map that we had earlier. The folks came down from Kiriath Jearim and took it up into the hill country to the city of Kiriath Jearim, where it stayed. And now this is kind of looking ahead, but do you remember when it moved next? We'll cover this in a couple weeks. It stayed here at Kiriath Jearim for a while. David finally came and took it and then moved it. This gets into the story of Uzzah and all that. Okay, just trying to connect the dots here of everything. So the ark is up here. Okay, really quickly, let's talk about lesson for today. We got about 2 minutes before we need to break. Lesson for today. It's simple. Respect God. What happened in this story? What continually happened in this story as people who did not have the proper respect for God? What happened?
They kind of believed that they could control God, that they could basically bend God to their will, what they wanted to accomplish, instead of the end versus the consequences talked about.
That's right. Yeah, and that's everybody. That's the Israelites deciding, you know what, let's take this out of Shiloh and let's take it into battle with us. That's not having proper respect for God. And then the Philistines, they capture it, and what do? We're going to take it. Again, that's the Philistines not having proper respect for God. And then when the Israelites get it back, they still haven't quite learned the lesson, and they don't have the proper respect for God. Everywhere along that entire path, things don't go well when you don't have the proper respect for God. Yes, sir?
Goes back, the same thing's going on with the Judges into that. Everyone did it all right.
Yeah, it's amazing how that thread is continuing, isn't it? Corey?
Going back to where the Israelites felt like they needed the fire to come, it's kind of same thing happens today. We feel like we need that physical presence, we need something physical
Yeah.
to see and hear, but not truly understanding who God is and how powerful He is and what He's capable of. I don't know, just like to me, when we were reading that was translated to today, where people still feel like they need something they can see.
Yep. Yep. Excellent point. Excellent point. But we need to have respect for God, and we need to remember that. And I think studying stories like this helps bring that to light. Okay, we're going to stop there. For Wednesday night, we're going to watch the video clip that's associated with this lesson. And, if you want to kind of read through this lesson to kind of remind yourself of what we talked about today, we'll be touching on some of those things on Sunday. Just as a reminder, if you're watching this online, we're going to break for about 10 minutes while we move the equipment downstairs, and then we'll start up the stream once we're down in the parking lot. All right, thanks, everyone.